want to just, the idea is that, you've got someone like Cory Booker, who is now like, I don't know, is he polling like 3 or 4%? And so they're trying to now reorient. Booker tries to come out with a big gun control reform, and it doesn't really get the attention. I mean, it got some attention. We mentioned it briefly, and it's a great policy proposal. This is sort of hand in hand, I guess, with his criminal justice reform, but it's fascinating to watch these politicians who don't have a track record that is as expansive and as deep and as consistent as some others, attempt to position themselves in a way that is both unique, but also against Trump. But maybe in the case of Booker, it really is like, I'm just going to be against Trump, maybe to the detriment of even Trumpism, which is, let's face it, Republicanism. And here is Cory Booker, and this is reminiscent of Joe Biden trying to answer why we shouldn't have Medicare for all, because somehow that lets employers off the hook, which is just a bizarre formulation. One may work, but it's bizarre nevertheless. Here's Cory Booker with his bizarre formulation of why, particularly in the wake of the Supreme Court basically today saying that Apple at least is open to a class action lawsuit because of its control over its app store, that one of the co-founders of Facebook has come out and basically said, time to break it up. There has been an increasing awareness of what the economic concentration does to society. And here is Cory Booker seemingly completely unable to address this question in a coherent fashion.
Chris Hughes, who helped co-found Facebook, has now come out to say that it should be broken up. He says that it is unprecedented and un-American to have this much power in one company. Where do you stand on breaking up Facebook?
I don't care if it's Facebook, the pharma industry, even the agricultural industry. We've had a problem in America with corporate consolidation that is having really ill effects. It's driving out the independent family farmer. It's driving up our prescription drug costs. And in the realm of technology, we're seeing small 1 or 2 companies controlling a significant amount of the online advertising.
So should they be broken up?
Well,
I mean,
again, I believe in process. And we should have, if I'm president of the United States, I will have a Justice Department that uses antitrust legislation to do the proper investigations and to hold industries accountable for corporate consolidation.
So wait a second. He's just outlined the real problem that we have. And then when he's asked, well, should we address it? He basically says, well, I don't know. As if there isn't been over 100 years of experience, both in trust busting and in breaking up this type of consolidation, and the contrary, where antitrust has been completely defanged. But the fact is that the process exists. It is completely a function of political will. It is completely a function of political will. The reason why the Justice Department has not broken up these companies and has done very little of this stuff since the 80s is because that has been the dominant political will. There has been a change in the perspective of what constitutes a monopoly. We have the exact same process, the exact same tools as we had 30 or 40 years ago or 50 years ago. The only thing that has changed is there has been a change in political will. And when that question is put to Cory Booker, he basically says it shouldn't be about political will. And instead, he tries to make it as if the increase in awareness of this problem and the commensurate political will to do something about it is whimsical.
Industries accountable for corporate consolidation. I think,
Elizabeth Warren's already out there saying break up Facebook, break up Google.
but I don't think
break
that,
up Amazon.
Right, but I don't think that a president should be running around pointing at companies and saying breaking them up without any kind of process here. Do I think it is a massive problem in America, corporate consolidation? Absolutely. It's about making sure that we have a system that works. It's not me and my own personal opinion about going after folks. That sounds more like a Donald Trump thing to say, like, I'm going to break up you guys. No, we need to create systems and processes.
You just compared Elizabeth Warren to Donald Trump.
I most certainly did not.
Well, that's what she's saying. She's the one that's saying that.
Well, again, let her discuss and debate her positions. I'm telling you right now, we do not need a president that is going to use her own personal beliefs and tell you which companies we should break up. We need a president that's going to enforce antitrust laws in this country, and I will be that person.
You know, this is really super suspect because if you look at the history of people who broke up these companies, they name these companies. The whole point of this, and to in some way imply, when the question was premised on Elizabeth Warren, that she's going around because she has a personal beef with Jeff Bezos, or she just doesn't like the way that Zuckerberg, dresses or something.
Oh, she is very vindictive.
I mean, this is pretty stunning stuff. And there is a process, but the point is that there's been no political will. It is really just a question of how does the executive branch want to approach this? And he is hiding the ball here. Here is a reminder for you why he might. This is a guy who, particularly when it comes to finance, had very little problem with finance, but also I think has a similar problem. And I think he just has a broad-based allergy towards seeing corporations as fundamentally problematic, that the way that they exist in our society is a political choice. Here he is talking about Barack Obama when Barack Obama was going after Bain Capital's vulture capitalism.
This kind of stuff is nauseating to me on both sides. It's nauseating to the American public. Enough is enough. Stop attacking private equities.
It was
Nauseating.
Oh my God. See, this is how we know that Jonathan Chait's argument is bullshit, right? Because if Americans were really just voting based on ideology and who's the most conservative, Cory Booker would be closer to the top and Warren and Sanders would not be second and third place.
Well, I don't know if that's Chait's argument as much, but I think he's declaring mission accomplished just a little bit too early.
Screenshot that headline, folks.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the bottom line is the only person who I think is clearly defined, really, in this race at this point, is Bernie Sanders, both to his detriment and to his benefit. Put up that chart, and you can see here. This is a Data Progress did a poll, which is sort of a fascinating poll. Who would you consider and who would you not consider voting for? So Joe Biden, 20% of the Democratic electorate, and I think this is like tied for third or fourth largest, percent say they would never vote for him. But 49% say they would consider voting for him, which is also the highest. And that's a 29% swing. Bernie Sanders, 28% say they would never vote for him. I think that's the highest. 36% say they would consider voting for him. The person who has sort of the most room to grow here, it seems like, is Elizabeth Warren. 13% would not vote for her. 40% would. Now, I don't think any of these numbers really have a huge bearing on the chances of someone winning, because the fact of the matter is you have so many candidates running that you can have a candidate who 30% will say, I will not vote for, and in under any circumstances, 36% considering to vote for it is very high. But I think Bernie Sanders is probably the most defined simply because he ran 2 years ago, and it's quite clear what his platform is. I think, Elizabeth Warren, it's clear to us what her platform is. I don't think that she's seen as much. Joe Biden, I just don't think that people have a real sense of what Joe Biden is running on. I mean, even if it's like the more partisan questions of like, I'm sorry, I think Republicans are people. Forgive me, Father, I have sinned. I think a lot of Democrats have come around to the awareness that Republicans are very problematic. Yeah. And when they become more and more aware of Joe Biden's positions in the past, I think it's going to become more and more problematic for him.
Yeah. We also have to remember that he's lost 2 Democratic primaries already. And just because he's friends with Obama doesn't mean that he's going to win. I also want to see the methodology of this poll, because a lot of the time, like, remember that one where it came to light that they didn't talk to anyone under 50?
Well, that was all
where they only used landlines. Like, those are ridiculous.
Yeah, I think. Look, that poll was corrected. I don't think this is a question of methodology on these polls. I mean, I think it's simply a question of we're in May. And there really hasn't been, other than just the brand Joe Biden, any examination of this guy. Now, it's quite possible this same thing could happen. Like, as soon as people see Pete Buttigieg on the stage, they're going to fall in love with him. But I think that it's unlikely that Joe Biden's going to be able to retain the sort of the general well-being with, or wealth, the general, I guess, good will of people when he starts to explain his positions.
I'm worried it's going to end up like Hillary and Bernie, in that there's going to be signs that people are responding to reality with him, and as a candidate being out of touch with reality, but it's not going to be fast enough to get him out of the primary, and he's going to win the primary because he's tied to Obama right now, and that's a big asset.
It's still very early too. Like, I looked at another chart. Obama was way behind Hillary at this point in time during the 2008 cycle. He did not pull ahead until January of 2008.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think, I think the big thing, I don't think the Hillary Bernie thing is as good of an analogy, because frankly, in the primary, she was very substantive. And I think to a certain extent, she moved quite a bit towards Bernie's position, then tacked back in the general, or at least in terms of what she was running on. I don't think it was a question as much as people had a misconception of Hillary Clinton. I think, certainly there was an effect as the more she ran, there was some element of like people had a lionized version of her when she was Secretary of State. It's much easier to appreciate someone when they're Secretary of State as opposed to sort of like, presenting their ideas about a whole host of things. And so we'll see. But